Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to Where the Road Rises, Law, Lessons, Legacy, your show with tools to help you and those you love. I heard today's guest speak at an event recently, delivering a treasure trove of valuable information to veterans and their families. And my first thought was, we have to have her here on Channel 4 because so many of you and your loved ones have served. She happily obliged, so we are delighted to host Amy Georgakopoulos, Service Officer of the Veterans Assistance Commission of Will County here today. The Veterans Commission provides advocacy to ensure veterans and their families receive the rights and benefits they are entitled to. The Commission also provides assistance and vital help navigating service-connected claims with local, state, and federal agencies. We have a lot to cover, so welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Eileen.
Delighted to have you here today. Why don't you just start by telling us what the Veterans Assistance Commission is?
So the Veterans Assistance Commission, we are a county-based organization, and we follow the guidelines of our state, but basically our purpose is to advocate for veterans and their families. We file claims for them, we explain the benefits to them, and provide a whole wealth of information with regarding assistance.
Beautiful. And how does your Will County Commission set itself apart from other commissions?
So we are unique in the fact that not only do we have 7 veteran service officers, we have 3 Air Force, 2 Marines, 1 Army, and I am actually the only civilian veteran service officer there. We are actually really big on outreach. We get out into the community. We deliver meals for Meals on Wheels. We go to senior service events. We now this is where I'm getting stuck. I have a whole list.
There is so much that you do, and we couldn't possibly cover it all today, Amy. We'll just talk a little bit, and we're going to, more importantly, give the viewers the information to get a hold of you if they need to.
Sure.
And one of the most important things that our viewers are already wondering is, since you're Will County and they're in Cook County, can they go to you too?
They can always come to us. I file claims for veterans, whether they live in Will County or they live in Rockford. I've filed claims for veterans that live out of state. They do not need to be a Will County resident to come to us for assistance.
Okay, so let's just talk about a few of the benefits that the families can apply for. What's the most common?
The most common is service-connected compensation, which basically means that if a veteran was if they were injured or if they have a disability that was incurred or aggravated by service, they would file for service-connected compensation. Now there's 3 types. There's direct, there's aggravated, and there's presumptive. Presumptive is what a lot of veterans might be familiar with, but then I also see that they're not so familiar with it. The biggest example that I can give you is our veterans that served in Vietnam. They were exposed to the herbicide Agent Orange. There is a list that the VA has rolled out that there's 14 presumptive conditions that they basically agree that if you are suffering from one of these illnesses and you were in country, meaning your boots were on the ground in Vietnam, that you could be suffering from one of these conditions. So what we need to do is we need to put together a solid claim where we would go ahead and obtain medical records, we would view their service records, provide evidence to submit for service connection. Now, if they are granted service connection, that could be anywhere from 0% to 100%. 0% is not compensable financially, but it is still a rating. Anything from 10% on is basically a rating. So either way, if they come to us and say, for example, they were in boot camp and broke their ankle, if they have problems with that ankle even years later, that would be an example of direct service-connected compensation.
Now, does that compensation include health care benefits?
No, it does not. This is specifically for the injury that was a result of their service.
Okay.
So now aggravation comes into play. Say they broke their ankle they broke their ankle prior to boot camp, and then it got worse in service. That would be aggravation. So there's like I said, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we have to put together. The best thing that they can do is, if they think they might qualify or be eligible to file for that benefit, is that they come to us so we can look at the big picture, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and then go on from there.
And let's talk about healthcare, as that's just such a concern for our seniors. So what are the qualifications in order to receive healthcare, and what are some of the considerations?
So VA healthcare is not typically insurance. That's the first misconception. It's a healthcare program that was rolled out by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and like all veterans benefits, there's eligibility requirements. So the first thing we will look at when they come in to meet us is, there's questions on the application. Did you serve in Vietnam? Were you at Camp Lejeune? Were you a prisoner of war? Are you service connected? If those are all no's, then we're going to look at their income. And the VA is going to make a determination if their income minus their unreimbursed medical expenses is low enough to qualify them for the VA healthcare program. Now, if they do qualify, it is veteran only. The only time a spouse could be qualified is if their husband was 100% service connected.
Okay.
There are qualifications behind it, and that's part of the frustration that I see when veterans come to meet with me, is how they can get themselves enrolled and how it's going to work best for them. Especially a lot of our veterans, our seniors, they'll come to me and we'll talk about Medicare, how that could work with their Medicare, or if they're also paying a supplement, if they have Medicare Advantage. I have background in insurance as well, so I spend a lot of time with them talking about their health insurance options.
Yes, and I'm sure tell us a little bit about your background in healthcare, because I'm sure that informs greatly your assistance to the veterans.
So I started out doing bedside nursing. I worked at LaGrange Memorial for 5 years on the surgical floor. I moved into pediatrics. From there, I got into the back end of the hospital experience. So I worked in patient accounts. Then I took a little bit of a break, had a couple kids.
Yes.
Then I decided to get back into the bedside part of it because I miss it so much. That's actually what I love the most. So I worked at Christ Hospital for a few years on the telemetry unit, and then changed again because as our family was growing and dynamics were changing, I needed to be home a little bit more, so I took a position working for Adventist yet again, was within the LaGrange Health System, and ran the surgical team for pre-access over 3 hospitals. So that gave me a good background in insurance and billing and coding, all of those good things. So when a lot of the veterans come to me to meet with me for their benefits, I have the clinical knowledge plus the added bonus of the insurance background behind me, so I can give them, I think, the best information.
Yes, and I know one of your strengths, Amy, is when the veterans and their families come to you, you know how to make those phone calls, how to fill out those forms, how to navigate through the local, the state, the county, the federal agencies. Tell us a little bit about that process. Can someone do it on their own, or should they always have the help of someone like you?
So you're more than welcome to file a claim on your own. There's no regulation that states that you need to work with a veteran service officer. But what sets us apart from other individuals is the fact that we are accredited veteran service officers, which means that we are recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs through our accreditation. We are sent to training. We know the regulations when the laws change, when the the benefits change. There was recently a change to the pension program last year. So the income and assets limit changed. The qualifications are a lot more stringent for someone to apply. So we recommend that you do see a veteran service officer. Number one, we're not going to charge you any money. There's organizations out there that will charge veterans and their families to file for these benefits. We do not. Our services are free. The other thing that is most important is, like I said, we are highly trained to know how to file a VA claim. You can look at the paperwork, and I'd like to think I'm a highly educated person, but when I first learned this, I didn't learn it in a day. I'm still learning. Every day I learn something new. So the most important thing that families can take away from this is to please, seek out an accredited veteran service officer, whether it be through our county or another county, and let us advocate for you.
And it's free. Your
It is
services
free.
are free. That's wonderful. Now, I do know that some of our beloved veterans feel very upset that some services covered, other isn't, and now there is this income level. Is there any lobbying efforts to change that so that everyone who served can have equal opportunity for the benefits that are available?
I understand the frustration, and I see a lot of that. The benefit that I specialize in is pension. It is income and asset based, and there are qualifications. So, for example, if you're not a wartime veteran, if your need is not there, if the income and assets are above a certain limit, then you're just not eligible. And I deal with the frustration behind it. You have to understand, we're just a county-based organization advocating for veterans. These guidelines are given down by the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is the federal government. So it's not that I don't know that there's lobbying to change it. It's just that I don't know the best way to go about that, because I wish I could change the rules. Like I said, I don't write them. I just have to enforce them, basically.
Yes.
So
and there are a lot of benefits that you do help the veterans and their families
Yes.
get. One of the things you mentioned in your lecture was the importance, if we have a pension that is being awarded due to an injury sustained in the war or aggravated by the war, it's important to have that in the death certificate, so that the spouse would continue to receive the benefit.
Right. So,
tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So when you have a surviving spouse that comes to us for survivor benefits, there's a couple things that we can talk about. If we need to discuss burial, typically a lot of the funeral directors have handled all of that, but if there's anything that we need to get involved with, for example, obtaining their separation papers from the service, their DD-214, we can help with that. The most common thing that I see spouses for is to see if their husband had passed or their wife from a service-connected death. That is very important. If they're in receipt of any type of service-connected compensation for any conditions, so say for example our Vietnam veterans, one of the most important conditions that they're suffering from is ischemic heart disease, type 2 diabetes. If they pass away and those conditions did not cause their death, then I don't have any leverage to get benefits for the surviving spouse. I can go a little bit deeper and look into medical records and see, if that condition did contribute to their death. But when someone dies, like when someone's born, you are the informant for the birth certificate for your child. When someone dies, you're also the informant for the death certificate. So I try to drive home to all my veterans and their spouses that if you're service connected for absolutely anything, and if in any way that may cause your death in the near future, there are 3 places for 3 leading causes of death, and there are also a place on the death certificate for contributing causes. Please make sure that those conditions get put on there, because it is so difficult to get the death certificate amended so we can get the VA to agree that you passed away from a service-connected condition.
And that could make the difference between whether you qualify for the spousal benefit or not. That's amazing. Great information to know. Tell us about the aid in attendance.
So the aid in attendance is basically my specialty. I file for that benefit. It's actually called non-service connected pension with aid in attendance. A lot of people come to me and they think that pension, they equate it to their employment pension. It's completely different. In the VA language, pension is income and asset based. So there is criteria. You have to have at least served 90 days of active duty with 1 day during a wartime period. If your active duty time was post-Korea but pre-Vietnam, you're not eligible, unfortunately. If they meet the wartime criteria period, then the second thing we have to prove is that there's a need. Basically, this benefit is geared to offset caregiver fees. So as we continue to age, a lot of times we'll need a private in-home attendant or an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility to help tend to our needs. This benefit will offset those costs. it's not guaranteed to make sure that your finances, your net worth is going to be extended permanently. It's just kind of hoping that whatever money you have left, it'll extend it a little bit. I don't know if you've checked, but the price of assisted living facilities are very, very high. I've seen them anywhere from $2,500 a month up to $10,000 for full-time care. So first, the veteran can apply if he is still married or she is still married, and then if the veteran passes, their surviving spouse is also eligible for this benefit.
Yes, yes, so important. Now, you, Amy, have family members who served in World War II, Korea, the Gulf War, Vietnam, and you deal every day with veterans and their families. You see wounds, mental, physical, and above all, hear their stories. So how has that changed you, informed you? What have you learned about the human condition from listening to those stories?
Well, you know, it's easy for me to kind of adapt because of my healthcare background. A lot of people just sometimes need to be heard, and I'm there to listen. I've heard things that, you know, people don't tell their families. They come and they confide in me. If they need to talk, they'll give me a call. We'll chat about, you know, what's going on that's good, what's going on that's not so good. But like I said, I feel that I'm a good balance in this because I've had a listening ear since my days in healthcare. So it's not that anything is shocking to me, but I feel that I have a better way to give back, especially into the veteran community, because like I said, I have a ton of family that have served, but I never did. So in a way, I feel like it's a good way for me to kind of be in there with them and have the same experience.
That's a lovely way to look at it. And are you still optimistic about humanity? I mean, do you find it depressing?
I'm always optimistic about humanity. Like I said, I have good days and bad days as a person, so do the veterans and their families. And like I said, we establish a relationship from the first visit, and I stay with them throughout the claim process. These claims, when they're submitted, they don't adjudicate within 30 days. Some of these take months. The pension claims can take anywhere from 6 to 8 months for them to receive a decision. And like I said, I'm with them through the whole process. And then the most important thing that I always tell them is, I want you to let me know if the decision is in your favor or not, because I want to be there for you one way or another. We can either talk about appeals if it's not in your favor, or I want to be there to give you support when it is in your favor. And like I said, my position, being that I deal with a lot of the seniors and the benefits that I file for a lot of people that sometimes are even in hospice, it's very sad, but I also feel that I can be a support for them as well when they don't feel that they have all the support that they need. So at least they have the commission behind them going through the process. And like I said, even if the outcome isn't what they've hoped, we just are there to let them know that we care.
Yeah. And how do you handle the legal aspect of dealing with the agency for them? Do you serve as their power of attorney? Can you work with a power of attorney for a veteran who is no longer able to?
When a family or a veteran come to us to file a claim or initiate the claim process, even if they have a civilian power of attorney, the VA doesn't acknowledge that. They want to know who their VA power of attorney is. So what we do is we appoint a veteran service organization to them to represent them throughout the process. I compare it to HIPAA. Like I said, I'm clinical, so I tell everyone, you have to realize I'm a county-based employee. I am nothing to the federal government with relationship to you. If I call them and ask them, what is going on with Joe's claim, they're going to ask me if I'm his VA power of attorney, and if I'm not, they're going to tell me to call back when I am, or basically put him on the line to speak, to allow me to speak. So the most important thing is that we take on a partnership with the veteran and their family, and then we will go ahead and advocate for them to the end.
That's absolutely tremendous, and to know that benefit is provided free through the county is tremendous. Now, tell me maybe another common benefit that you help people with. So we've talked about the health care, we've talked about the pension.
The service-connected compensation. There's also burial. Typically,
Yes.
To receive burial benefits, mostly it's service-connected or non-service-connected driven. So if the veteran was in receipt of benefits when they passed, there's a burial reimbursement that we can file for. A lot of times they'll come and they'll ask me, can I get buried in a VA cemetery? Well, there's a pre-needs form that I can give them if they want to determine eligibility and send to the National Cemetery Scheduling Office. Typically, a lot of funeral directors are well-versed in how to handle this, but we're also there as a backup.
Okay.
If there's someone that wants to plan, then they can come and talk to us and we can give them the guidelines, give them information. So the closest national cemetery to us would be Abraham Lincoln, that's located in Elwood.
Elwood, yes. And what's covered? So the burial space. What about any of the funeral arrangements?
So you will still pay your funeral director for your final care, but you will not pay for the actual grave itself.
Okay.
You won't pay for the opening and closing. You can decide if you want a traditional burial or if you want to be cremated. There's space for both. They can accommodate both.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is there any more unusual benefits that our clients our viewers might not be aware of that they could apply for through the Veterans Aid?
So for example, if it's something, it's not necessarily a benefit, but when you receive your discharge from the military, you receive what's called a DD-214. It's your separation document. If there's something on there that you believe is not accurate, you can apply for a discharge upgrade. We can look at the criteria and determine if it's something that is upgradable and file for it. If there is a family that comes and says, you know, my dad served in Vietnam and we never got any of his medals, we can request that information, we can request their records, things like that. A lot of veterans have misplaced their DD-214 or lost it over the years, moved, we can order that. We have one veteran service officer that is from the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs in our office, and actually we are the only VAC in the state that has a representative from IDVA with us, and he will go ahead and certify driver's licenses. So if you want to get the veterans designation on your license, they can come to our office with their discharge paperwork and their current driver's license. We'll give them a certified copy that they take to the DMV, things like that.
Yes. And what about old war records or finding buddies that they were in World War II with, or even records going back to the Revolutionary War? Is it possible for viewers to get that kind of information?
I don't believe they go back that far. A lot of, believe it or not, a lot of the veterans that I interact with, if they're trying to network with some of their buddies, they use social media to do a lot of that, and that's how they find each other. There are websites and groups that they can join. They can join the Legion or the VFW and network that way. But most of them, believe it or not, and regardless of their age, have used social media as their outlet to find out where their friends are.
That's amazing. And I'm sure that you are able to help the veterans too with all the different associations that they could join to connect with each other if they're lonely, if they're new to an area, something like that.
Well, and if we don't have the exact answer for them, we can point them in the direction of the organization that does, because we network with a lot of local agencies, for example, Senior Services, Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans, Morning Star Mission, Catholic Charities. We network with all of them. Our office sets itself apart in a way also because we have a shower, we have a food pantry. So we take care of the homeless. If the holidays are coming, we get a lot of donations, and if there's someone that's hungry and short on groceries, they can come to us and we can help them with meals. We get donations of clothing and shampoo and everything that you can possibly imagine. So we're a wealth of information.
Absolutely, and resources. Thank you so much for sharing all of this, Amy. Tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you, the contact information for your office.
So we are the Will County Veterans Assistance Commission. Our phone number is 815-740-8389. Otherwise, we do have email. My email is my first initial A, my last name Georgakopoulos at willcountyillinois.com.
Luckily, it's on the screen, viewers.
Right.
That's a long one. And any closing thoughts?
We actually are in the process of putting together and hosting a Veterans Day ceremony. It is going to be on Veterans Day this year. It is November 11th, which is a Monday, starting at 9 a.m. The ceremony will actually start at 10, and it's at the Rialto Theater in downtown Joliet. So we would love to have anyone in the area please come out. Like I said, we try and get out into the community as much as we can. There'll be other organizations there that will have tables that can go ahead and point the guests in the direction of other resources that they might be looking for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank
Amy.
you for having me.
That has been terrific. I'm glad we got all this information for our viewers. And viewers, I can personally tell you that Amy is this wonderful. She will hold your hand through the process, and remember, you don't have to be in Will County to take advantages of the office and of the services. So if you have any questions, please do reach out. As for Carolyn Walsh Law, we're starting again with our Katie's Gifts. So for the months of November and December, if you bring along a small gift, toy, gift card for the hospitalized children during the holidays, you will get a free power of attorney, HIPAA release, and living will. So any questions, just call my office. You have the information on the screen, and I will see you next time on Where the Road Rises. Thanks and bye.